We have with us president, founder, CEO of Health Citizens Council for Health Freedom, CCH Freedom, cchfreedom.org. If you haven't been to the website, make sure you go there and check it out. Listen to some of the latest commentaries from Twila and really get some valuable information as we think about our health care. Twila, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Twila, my first question, of course, is what kind of feel do you have? What kind of feel did you have, I should say, leading in to the elections of what it might mean for Obamacare, mean for our health care, should conservatives take control of the Senate and maintain the House? What are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, as I look to the that possibility, I think about the history of Congress and what they have done, and some of the initiatives that Republicans have done, and I'm always concerned. I think there's a reason that the trust of Congress is so low, and that's because Congress and members of Congress often say things but do little, or they say something and they do something different. And so I'm always cognizant of the fact that people can make promises when they're out of office or when they're out of power, and then when they get into power, things can change. Now, when I saw the election results coming in and the fact that the Senate was going Republican, I thought, well, let's just see how that plays out. What will they say about Obamacare? Mm-hmm. And Mitch McConnell, who will no doubt be the Senate Majority Leader, says that he intends to repeal Obamacare, says that it probably can't be repealed until 2017, but it's his full intent to repeal it. Now, I read one commentary that thought that he might be going a little back on that, but I guess we'll wait to see. But the House, I was very concerned. I was listening to an interview that Megyn Kelly did with the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, and she pressed him on moving towards repeal of Obamacare. And I think she asked him 2 or 3 times before she finally said, "With respect, sir." Those seem like talking points. What I'm asking you is whether you will or will not do it. And then he said, well, and this is not an actual quote because I don't have it right in front of me, but basically he said, well, I would move to repeal Obamacare once we have the ability to have an alternative at the same time. And I thought,
alternative.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that would mean, of course, that he'd have to get all the members in agreement to whatever this alternative was. And meanwhile, people are losing their coverage. They're going to be faced with fines starting in June for being uncovered or having the wrong coverage. All the paperwork with the IRS is going to be starting. All of this stuff is happening. And he's not going to move even an effort to repeal Obamacare until they have an alternative. Well, to me, that sounds like that may never happen. I mean, that was just kind of phenomenal to me.
Well, here's the real. If you really want to know what Congress is about, Obamacare is going to be a great way to find out. And what I mean by that is that the House of Representatives put forth a bill to repeal Obamacare or certain parts of the bill a year and a half or so ago. Now, they did that. And did they do that because they really wanted to do it? Or did they do it because they knew it would never see the light of day on the Senate floor and they could run for re-election on the idea that they tried and they couldn't get it through the Senate? That's what I believe they did. I said that's why they did it when they did it, and there was no thought behind it. There was no real initiative to get it approved because they knew it was never going to see the light of day, but it gave them the opportunity to say, hey, I voted for repealing Obamacare. So if they are sincere about that, it would only stand to reason that they would resurrect that bill, they would vote on it again, and they would put it now to Mitch McConnell's desk to pass the Senate and let President Obama veto it. And it'll be interesting to see if they do that. And by what you've just said, it sounds like that's not going to happen.
Well, I think the American people need to be contacting their members of Congress, Senate, and Representatives and saying, first thing on your list is this, and make that happen. I thought it was interesting that McCarthy followed up his statement about, well, when we have the ability, right, by saying, but the first thing I'm going to do is focus on getting the economy running.
Yeah.
Not Obamacare. Repealing Obamacare is one of the first things that you can do to get the economy running.
Well, I mean, the problem with the economy is two things: failed government policies and the lack of the government to develop sound fiscal policies. I mean, there's the problem with the economy. And part of the sound fiscal policy, as you've just said, is going to be, to start getting the fiscal policy in order and our fiscal house in order is to repeal Obamacare. Right. I mean, they go hand in hand. So I don't know how you can leave a big chunk of this. And I'm not sure when they say alternative, the alternative is the private sector. We have an alternative. We've had an alternative for years. So you mean an alternative to Medicaid, I guess, is what he's, I mean, I don't understand does the old system, did that need to be tweaked? Of course. Yes, it did. But they want a new government system to replace this, or another government system to replace the new government system that was just put into place with Obamacare, and it makes no sense, and it scares me to think about it.
Right, and it's there's a bigger principle, which is sort of what you have touched on here, and that is the fact that the Constitution doesn't tell the federal government that they can be involved in health care in any way, shape, and form. Mm-hmm. And when they first gave us Medicare, that was actually unconstitutional. Yes. And it is because of Medicare that we are where we are now with Obamacare. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that the politicians see the absolute crisis coming upon them with the fact that Medicare has a $43 trillion unfunded liability. And if they could just create a single-payer healthcare system, they could take all of that money. They could say they've covered everyone. They could say there's no unfunded liabilities. They could just wipe those off the books. They just would ration health care implicitly or explicitly through this single-payer system. So I think the pressure of Medicare and that crisis is what has caused both Republicans and Democrats to think they have to do something. Well, the problem is that they shouldn't have been in the business in the first place. And so when I hear members of Congress saying we need to replace it with something, well, the only thing you should replace it with is a repeal. Because otherwise it's just more federal government where federal government is constitutionally obligated not to be.
Right.
Right.
And,
so
yeah, and it scares me, and that's what I've been thinking about when this after election. I was thinking we'll see what they do if they truly are, because all the talk was the economy, the economy, the economy. Well, we know that. We know the problems with the economy. We know what's got to be fixed, and we know that it's lack of fiscal policies, both from Republicans and Democrats. It's, in my opinion, it's got us into this crisis. But Obamacare is a big piece of that. Certainly, the $100 trillion of unfunded liability is a big piece of it. When we look at Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security alone, right. And that $100 trillion doesn't include Obamacare. Right. So, those numbers aren't even in there. And now the CBO tells us, well, that we were wrong about that surplus that we were going to have in 10 years. It's now a deficit. So, and they're saying a deficit created of $500 million. If they're saying $500 million, it's going to be $500 billion. 500 billion. If they're saying that's a deficit, you can count on being about 1.2 trillion, because that's on average about how far off they are most of the time. So it's just such a crisis. It's very concerning to me, and I'm wondering we are going to have to be so vigilant. I wrote about this for my newsletter next week that please let's not drop our guard. Let's maintain our vigilance. We just got out of the starting block. We didn't finish any races yet. We just got out of the starting blocks. We got a long way to go. And I hope that the American people that came out to help with this election, I hope they're going to stay vigilant. And we all have to stay vigilant, like you say, write our Congress and congressmen and the Senate and everybody that we can think of to try to get this repealed. And I'm going to assume, Twila, that you're going to be doing some things on your website in upcoming months in reference to this.
Right. I think that there should be no great sigh of relief.
Yes.
There should be. The one thing about Republicans is that they are more sensitive to their constituents than Democrats. And well, of course, and Democrats are happy to do whatever. And most people are happy to have them say, yes, you can take everybody's money and give us something, right? But Republicans, at least they're sensitive to their constituents. And when they start to hear from their constituents, they might back away from something. So that's a good thing. But there's no reason for great relief. And we can see that right out of the blocks with these comments from Majority Leader McCarthy. I would say that one of the most interesting things to me was how quickly the liberal media and the members of the now minority side of the Senate, the Democrats, were talking about how this election was saying that the American people said that we have to work together.
Right. I know.
And I just wrote yesterday in my e-news, so for your listeners who are getting the e-news, they already know this, but, I said beware of Democrats who talk about working together. Because when they were in power, there was no working together. And as a matter of fact, Harry Reid did the nuclear option, and he made sure that President Obama could put in his judicial appointees without needing much Republican support or any Republican support at all. And so, no Republican support. Mm-hmm. But now they want to work together, and they say the American people have said work together. No. The American people have said we don't like Obama's policies. We don't want you to put any of those things in. As a matter of fact, we want you to stop what is happening here. We don't want you to work together. Yeah. We want you to stop them. Obama.
And if our representatives miss that point, we're going to be right back, and we're not going to make any progress, because this was, I've heard all the things that this is a referendum on liberalism, a referendum on Democrats, and all those things. This is a referendum on failure. That's what this is. This was a we're tired of the failure of the ideology of this president and all the cronies that go along with this president. That's what this was. And so we've got to stop that. We've got to wipe that out. And this wasn't, well, we're tired of the divisiveness and we all want to work together. That's not what this was at all. I don't know one person that I talked to said, we've got to stop the divisiveness. No, they said we've got to stop this lunacy that is wrapped in this ideology that has been failure after failure after failure. And that's what we got to get to.
And stop the overreach.
Oh, the overreach.
It was interesting to watch the president in his press conference yesterday, because he was glib. He was arrogant and he was glib.
Yeah.
And he got pointed questions asked to him about, well, clearly, I don't remember the actual terms, but clearly this is sort of a referendum on you.
Right.
Yeah. And he made it really clear in that he would never sign a repeal of the law. There are all sorts of things he wouldn't do, but he was so glib and kind of lighthearted during the whole thing.
He sure was. His tone had totally changed. Twila Brace, Citizens Council for Health Freedom, cchfreedom.org. Make sure you sign up for her newsletter, cchfreedom.org. Twila, thank you so much for being with us. We sure do appreciate it. Folks, we'll be right back after this.